Welcome to this deep dive. Today we're stepping away from, the modern headlines and looking at a fascinating document called The Deep Genetic Connection.
Yeah, it's a completely different way to look at the Middle East.
Exactly, because if you strip away the borders and just look at microscopic strands of DNA, the picture is, well, it's kind of shocking. The source text actually uses phrases like blood brothers or cousins to describe Jews and Palestinians.
Right, purely from a scientific standpoint. I mean, the science here really is undeniable. We're talking about
Yeah.
a profound shared genetic baseline that traces directly back to the
The
Canaanites.
ancient inhabitants of the Levant region.
Exact.
But, how do geneticists actually prove an ancient link like that? Because wouldn't thousands of years of human movement just, scramble all that data?
Well, it does scramble it, which is why researchers focus heavily on the Y chromosome. Since it's passed down directly from father to son, it acts like almost like a biological time capsule.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it lets scientists bypass all that recent genetic noise and trace a direct paternal line back millennia. And when they do that with Jewish and Palestinian men, they find both groups belong to the exact same indigenous Middle Eastern gene pool.
Wait, the exact same pool?
Yeah, in fact, modern Palestinians derive over 80% of their ancestry from Bronze Age Levantine populations.
80%. That is massive. So it's not just some distant, watered down link.
Not at all.
It's almost like, think of having a master recipe, like an ancient sourdough starter.
Right.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah. So even if two different bakers take half of it and add their own ingredients over centuries, the core yeast remains biologically identical.
That is a perfect way to visualize it.
Yeah.
That core starter is the Canaanite ancestry. And this genetic closeness mirrors the historical reality, too. Genetic studies repeatedly show that Palestinians are closest to Mizrahi Jews, Druze, and Bedouins.
Wait, really? Yeah. Under Ottoman rule, Arab Muslims, Christians, and Jews often coexisted side by side. Some Arab residents actually called the local Jewish population Arab-born Jews, or simply natives.
But wait, if the biological starter dough was identical, how did these two groups end up looking so distinct today, both culturally and genetically?
Well, that's where major historical events kind of splintered the population. A massive turning point was the 7th century Islamic conquest.
Okay.
The genetic data indicates that a large portion of modern Muslim Palestinian ancestry actually comes from the local inhabitants of the Levant. So primarily Christians and Jews who converted to Islam during and after that era.
Wow. So rather than a totally new population moving in and replacing everyone, the locals just absorbed the new culture and religion.
Precisely. Meanwhile, the Jewish population took a radically different path. Because of the diaspora, Jewish populations scattered globally, and that led to what geneticists call admixture.
Admixture, meaning like they integrated into new populations and picked up new genetic markers over generations.
Yes, exactly. Through intermarriage and blending. Ashkenazi Jews, for example, possess around 40 to 50% European-related genetics.
Got it.
Because they absorbed those European markers over centuries, they sit slightly further away from ancient Levantine samples on a genetic map than modern Palestinians or Middle Eastern Jews do.
It makes you realize that the biological divergence is actually just a map of migration. Which brings up the obvious question, like what drove that massive dispersion in the first place?
Right, the historical drivers.
Yeah, and just to remind you, the listener, we aren't taking sides here. We're simply unpacking what our source text explicitly states regarding the historical drivers for a sovereign homeland.
Exactly. And the text points directly to two major historical traumas. First, you have the brutal Roman expulsions in the 1st and 2nd century CE. The Romans crushed local revolts, destroyed the Second Temple, and forced a violent dispersion of the Jewish people.
Which was the initial bottleneck that really shattered the local population.
Right. And then you have a second major driver centuries later. Systemic, relentless persecution in Europe, which ultimately culminated in the Holocaust.
And the document explicitly ties those traumas to the establishment of the State of Israel, right?
It does. It frames the push for a sovereign homeland, not just as a return to an enduring historical and religious origin, but as a literal matter of existential survival against state-sponsored violence.
So the ancient DNA and the modern political reality are completely intertwined by thousands of years of survival, migration, and tragedy.
Yeah, they're inextricably linked.
It's incredible. Understanding these deep shared roots gives you a totally different lens for viewing these complex identities. We're so used to seeing absolute rigid lines drawn between people.
But biology shows us those lines are culturally drawn. They aren't actually encoded in our DNA.
Exactly. Which leaves you with something pretty profound to think about. If ancient DNA reveals that populations are far more biologically connected to their perceived rivals than they ever realized, well, how might understanding that shared origin change the way we write the next chapter of human history?